If you feel like you know exactly what to do to lose the weight and keep it off, but are struggling to do so, you're in the right place. Welcome to the 5% Way podcast, where myself, registered dietitian Paul Salter, and my co-host, sustainable weight loss specialist Micheala Barsadi, have an impactful conversation focused on helping you uncover the root cause of the self-sabotaging behaviors holding you back from achieving sustainable weight loss. Your transformation begins from the inside out, and our purpose is to accelerate that progress by sharing practical strategies and need-to-know information to help you reclaim your confidence, control, and inner calm so that you can feel, look, and be your best. Hey, 5% podcast listeners, welcome back to another episode of the 5% Way podcast with your hosts and sustainable weight loss specialist, myself, Paul Salter, and Micheala Barsadi. Micheala, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Paul. Good to be back. I was so excited going into the community this morning. I mentioned it. I made a story about how just happy and excited I was reading through some of the wins from the weekend of just our members and just how many people are doing so great. It's just it lights me up inside.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the best way I would describe my reaction is my heart is just full. And I think actually, oddly enough, I might have posted that this weekend after reading them too. It's wonderful to see how well everyone's doing. And in fact, too, I wanted to kind of brag on some of our community members. We put out this big survey in December, kind of our end of the year survey for those of you listening, to really gather feedback on our core elements about where we could make improvements. What could we add? What could we subtract? Or what could we do better, just to really make sure we have as much candid information as possible to improve everyone's transformational experience. And I just want to take a moment to read a couple when we asked the question, how beneficial have you found our private community? So some of the answers to that question were as follows. Just having the community and folks of like-minded goals. I have really enjoyed the Wednesday night calls. So much great information in those. And another person went on to say, being part of a community with like-minded individuals who have similar goals reminds me that I am not on my own. Everyone, including the coaches, are friendly, really honest about their journeys, and always support one another and help with accountability. And yes, I could read a million of these, but the last one I'll read is, having support from like-minded people is priceless. And I really just want to use those to reinforce the power of community, because when you truly surround yourself with like-minded people, it removes all feelings of loneliness, isolation, hopelessness, and despair, and instead replaces those feelings with positive ones, inspiration, excitement, and you get to really feed off of everyone's energy, feel more driven, committed, and accountable to doing what you need to do, even when you do not feel like it, to reach your goals and aspire to be the very best person you want to be. So for those of you listening who have been on the fence about the 5% community, both Micheala and myself have been sharing more and more feedback from the surveys we sent out, sharing a ton of wins on a very regular basis on each of our respective Instagram profiles, which you can find in the show notes below. And oh, by the way, the 5% Way just got its own brand new Instagram that just kicked off earlier this week. As of recording this episode, what is today? January 24th. I think yesterday, the first post officially went live. So this particular profile is going to specifically speak to women who have undergone a long period of time stuck in that yo-yo dieting cycle, struggling with body image, self-worth, their relationship with food, dieting, or simply themselves, and really be a go-to educational resource. So if that is what you need a bit more of in your life, we can not only help but encourage you to give that profile a follow. It's just simply at the 5% Way. And again, if you really feel that you are missing out on having that like-minded community in your corner, send Micheala or myself a DM. Let's talk about the 5% community, or simply click on the link in the show notes to learn all about what it is, what we do, and how we can help you not only lose the weight you desire, but experience a total transformation to feel, look, and be your best from the inside out. But let's get on topic, because I could talk about that all day, Micheala, and really dive into the nitty-gritty of what we're going to speak about in today's episode. And today, we want to dig deep into the depth of chronic emotional pain that can be felt when we're simply in a rut, and discuss some personal experiences and strategies to help you, the wonderful listener, take what we've learned going through plenty of emotional ruts and help you get out of that rut even 5% quicker so that you can refocus and get back into your groove. And before I dive into a bit of education here and some personal stories, I want to preface this episode with this. We aren't licensed therapists. We're not psychiatrists, psychotherapists, or anything like that. But each of us have battled our fair share of emotional ruts because, like you, we too are human beings. So I just want you to keep in mind as you listen and absorb this information here that this is simply a conversation between you, a human, and us two humans. It's going to be real, relatable, and simply aimed with having a desire to help you break out of a rut you may be in now or may experience in the future just a little bit quicker. So with that said and out of the way, let me dive in by laying a little bit of foundational groundwork on emotions and energetics. So when I'm referring to emotional ruts, what I specifically mean for the context of this episode is when a feeling has become so strong, it has elevated a thought to a belief and really attached itself to your daily actions. It's a thought that ruminates and takes over your mental environment. It showcases itself in your actions, or perhaps lack of actions. And it is so strong and so lingering that it really begins to take shape and alter your identity and your reality. And it's not until some traumatic breakthrough, massive change in your environment, or doing the deep work within that you're able to shake that emotion and get back to thinking, believing, acting, and cultivating your identity on your own terms. Because as you're going to hear me talk about a little bit more, when we are in a rut, our emotions can really hijack, our thoughts and our control center in our brain. It can really make it significantly harder to let the logical portion of our brain be the one behind making some of our decisions. And when our emotions are in control, well, you and I both know that doesn't always end well, as we are more prone to irrational, knee-jerk reactions and decision-making that really never works out in our best interest in the short or the long term. And the best way to really begin thinking about emotions are as energy. See, emotions are energy, and they're felt as vibrations within the body. And the best example I can have to really illustrate and, demonstrate some relatability to that is, think about when you are walking into a room of people. If you are paying attention, the first thing you may notice is you can often feel the energy of the room. If you were to walk into, and I hate to use this grim example, but bear with me for the sake of trying to illustrate this example simplistically. If you were to walk into a room of individuals just gathering after a celebration of life, you're going to feel the somber energy, the sadness amongst one another. And that's going to be displayed, yes, in body language, maybe lack of conversation, but you're going to know the instant you walk into that room, make eye contact with the surrounding environment, that this is not, a happy, ecstatic mood at the current moment. Conversely, if you were to walk into maybe a surprise party, a promotional party at work, a holiday celebration, you can walk in and have an instant read on the situation and note that there is something joyous and positive radiating from this room. And that's emotion vibrating at a specific frequency. And, it's commonly shared that, when we are vibing and feeling really good, we are really just vibing at a high frequency. So when we're walking around feeling uber confidence, joy, awe, or happiness, we are described to be operating at a high frequency or vibrating at a high frequency. And this is important. This is when we are most expansive, present, ready for connection and growth, and feeling fulfilled. But conversely, we can also operate at a very low frequency. So when we're plagued or bogged down by negative emotions, we're said to be operating or vibrating at a very low frequency energy. And this is usually when we're in a position of closed-mindedness, maybe sadness, frustration, bitterness, and irrational decision-making. So what I want you to take away and remember is that emotions are literally vibrations of the body. They're energy being given off and sent or transmitted between you and your respective environment. And more often than not, those emotions, that energy, those vibrations are going to manifest physiologically in your body. I mean, think about the last time you felt incredibly nervous. Maybe you had to speak in front of some coworkers, give a presentation, lead a seminar or workshop. Those butterflies are feelings of nervousness, anxiety, maybe lack of preparation even, are felt physiologically in your gut, in your stomach. Similarly, maybe you're incredibly stressed about something. You're feeling anxious about something unrelated. You may feel tightness in your chest. One of the best pieces of advice, if you take anything from this episode, other than that foundational knowledge and groundwork we just laid, is that gaining clarity on how emotions are felt in your body is a fast track method to being able to quickly bring awareness to said emotion and to being able to quickly make a change or take an action to alter your emotional state so that you can either get rid of said emotion, or if you notice a positive emotion being present, you can amplify that emotion to really make the most of that situation. But returning back to emotions here, operating at a high or low frequency, more often than not, we are quick to notice and experience and feel those negative emotions, which is where I want to spend the rest of today's conversation. Because when an emotion really takes hold deep at your core, well, we often find ourselves stuck, really experiencing and feeling that emotion, not only physiologically, but in our thoughts, our self-talk, our word choice amongst others, our beliefs, our actions, maybe our lack of action, which slowly showcases itself as a habit, which ultimately influences both our identity and our reality. And like I mentioned earlier, when emotions are in the driver's seat, they take over our decision-making and completely block out the logical or the rational decision-making part of our brain, which can lead to those irrational, knee-jerk, often regretted decisions, and unfortunately, further prolongs the time we spend in this rut. And some of those emotions most commonly felt when we're really stuck in a rut include, but by no means limited to, guilt, regret, anxiety, frustration, anger, sadness, and like I mentioned, among many others. And depending on the depth and the intensity of said emotion, how it is felt, whether or not you recognize it, where it is felt, this experience may last a matter of moments, but could also last hours, days, weeks, or even months. And as I mentioned earlier, which is incredibly important to reiterate, the first proactive step you can take to really gain clarity on identifying some common emotions you experience and how you physiologically feel them. How does sadness show up physically for you? How does anxiety or stress show up physically for you? What about confidence? Happiness. I know I feel very light on my feet when I am confident and in an uber good mood. And similarly, when I am stressed or anxious, I feel immense tightness in my chest. So you want to be able to really start practicing some awareness, mindfulness of how emotions are showing up physiologically for you. Because when you do that, you create awareness. And as you've heard both Micheala and myself say over and over again, bringing awareness to something is that first essential step to even creating an opportunity to make a positive change, to right a wrong or solve a problem. So you want to start noticing throughout your day, I am feeling blank, maybe journaling in the morning or the evening, just sharing how you are feeling, trying to put an adjective or two to the present state of your feelings, and then sit with yourself quietly. Do you notice where you feel that the emotion or that adjective you just described? Gain clarity there. It will serve you incredibly well. And Micheala, I just want to check in. Anything I missed, do you feel that you really want to highlight or go over here before I kind of transition us into a personal story about being stuck in an emotional rut?
I mean, what you said, it was so good. I'm like over here taking notes. I'm like, you can't get enough of this stuff. But honestly, I think it's so amazing when you are able to make that connection and understand your emotions and create more awareness around it, because you can also use this to work backwards. Like, let's say you have a negative habit that you want to ditch. Well, dive into when you're experiencing, let's say it's late night snacking and you always go for the sugar late night. Well, understand what are your feelings and emotions late night when you go to grab that snack. This is your wind down time. So you're starting to become less stressed, or maybe on the flip side, you are very stressed. And so you're able to identify that emotion and then realize, okay, I need a different crutch in that moment because this certain habit is not serving me. So it just goes to show, if you have a negative habit that you're trying to kick, this can be an awesome way to do so.
Absolutely. It's all about feelings. Everything in life is about a desired feeling or a feeling we want to get rid of. So that's a great example. And just now, like, I clearly know, because you hear me talking a million miles an hour, I'm vibrating at a high frequency. I feel really good. And a sign I just noticed that reinforced how I'm feeling right now is my ability to, while Micheala was talking, I took one single deep inhalation and one exhalation. My ability to control my breathing, slow down, feel like I only need 2 or 3 breaths per minute is amplified when I really feel in control, positive, high energy, and confident. And that's just a sign for me that I'm feeling really good when I can quickly go back to my breath, control it, inhale, pause, exhale, pause, a box breathing technique we've talked about at great length in the 5% community, on demand, in control 100% of the way. And it's a wonderful sign for me to just continue to enjoy being present in this state. But like I mentioned, we're talking about emotional ruts. So I want to share a personal example where for about, probably 6 to 8 months, I was absolutely stuck in an emotional rut, really harboring feelings of bitterness, anger, frustration, and a little bit of the, familiar phrase we all know, why me, if you will. And this took place back in 2015 and bled into 2016 a little bit when I was living in Idaho. I was very much into competitive powerlifting. I had competed twice and I had my sights set on a meet about 10 months down the road where I felt that my current position in my training with where my squat and my deadlift were, I could have a really good chance of breaking the Idaho state record for both the squat and the deadlift in my respective weight class. I believe I was 30 or 40 pounds away from each with 10 months to go and still very early into my powerlifting specific career, meaning I was more prone to being able to make strength gains a bit quicker than had I been 10 or 20 years into my career. And like I said, I had a couple competitions under my belt and I had really began to alter my lifestyle to really, identify as a power lifter. Not only were my nutrition and training habits reflective of this, but my sleep habits were, my interests were. I'm spending time in powerlifting forums, reading books on programming design and technique and this, that, the other, connecting with like-minded individuals in the powerlifting community. I'm flying across the country to attend seminars and workshops in person, to go squat with these dudes who have brains bigger than my quads, just to learn and absorb as much information as possible. And unfortunately, life happened and I was rear-ended in a car accident. And I didn't think too much of it at the time. The car wasn't going too quick. But what was later diagnosed was 2 herniated discs and some severe strain and muscle damage to a underlying layer of muscle I truly can't pronounce. That's like the quadrilateral something, QL is the short term. And again, I know I probably should have prepared to pronounce that before the call, but I just came to know it as a QL. And I found myself in intensive massage therapy multiple days per week, trying out this chiropractor and that, because I would wake up every morning after this accident. About 24 hours later, it sat in, and I couldn't really get out of bed very well. I kind of had to roll myself out of my bed onto my floor. And it would take me anywhere from 5 to, unfortunately, 30 minutes to actually be able to confidently stand up, wobble to my bathroom, go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, get down my stairs without tripping over my cat, and make my way into the office, which obviously shows you any thoughts of lifting were completely out of the question. And this happened in, I believe it was like a November, or October or November of that year. And I saw physical therapists. I saw chiropractors, massage therapy. I was going to get a massage 3 or 4 days per week, and nothing was really helping. And being so committed to identifying as a power lifter, I was finding every which way to try to train around the injuries, only using machines, taking a couple extra days off, modifying this, that, and the other. I mean, by no means did I step under a barbell or even attempt to deadlift, but I slowly started to notice progress. It took about 3 months to notice a significant reduction in my pain. And later that year, the following year, it was early May, I was rear-ended again. And this was when I was just feeling comfortable getting under a barbell again, working my way up to some, competitive weights for myself based on where I was previously to being rear-ended the first time. And I felt as if my world had just come crashing down. I had spent, again, late October or November to May, rehabbing, being in so much pain. And there were days where I thought I would never lift again, days I legitimately struggled to physically get out of bed. Walking was an issue. Sitting, I had a standing desk, fortunately, when I was at work there, still working for another company at the time. I couldn't really sit much, so I was standing some of the day. I'd sit for 5 minutes. It was very uncomfortable. And I felt like I was finally out of it. And then I was rear-ended again. And maybe the real takeaway here is people in Boise, Idaho can't drive really well. I'm not sure. Just kidding. But it set me back, 10 different steps, if you will. If the first accident set me back 5 steps and I was able to finally take a few forward, this set me back at least 10. I was right back to square one, but in so much more pain. Now the pain radiated down my leg, all the way to my foot, up my shoulder, into my neck, and I was a mess. I was told I should not be lifting in any way, shape, or form for months. I was told that I had no chance of squatting or deadlifting again. And the sooner I accepted that, the easier my recovery would be. And as you can imagine, being someone who completely identified as a competitive power lifter, and not only could I not compete in powerlifting, I couldn't even execute one of the 3 components, let alone get in the gym safely. I was an absolute mess. I spent so many nights, crying myself to sleep. Like, who am I? I lost all sense of identity, my actions and consistency in the nutrition realm, in the personal growth realm, obviously in the exercise realm. All took a major hit, multiple steps back, because I did not know how to pull myself out of this dark place of bitterness, resentment, anger, frustration, as I continued to tell myself the sob story of why me. And it took a very noticeable toll on me, to the point where I am someone who typically operates very much as a lone wolf, can handle my emotions well, and go about my day even when shit is tough. But my parents started taking notice that something was off in my demeanor, my friends, my coworkers, and it was a very unfortunate reality where this sense of a loss of my identity had begun to bleed into other areas of life, impacting my work, impacting relationships in my life. And it took me a very long time to slowly but surely pull myself out of it, come to the opportunity to really create a new identity or detach my self-worth from powerlifting. And I fully recognize that this may seem like a very simplistic or surface level example, but for me at that point in my life, that was who I was. And it was stripped out from under me in the blink of an eye, twice really, in less than a year. And the way it forced me to rebuild myself proved out to be incredibly rewarding, but it never felt like that during the entire process. And those emotions I described took a strong foothold. It's as if they partnered up with some Gorilla Glue and really stuck to my self-talk, my thoughts, my beliefs, as well as my action, inaction, and identity, and really shaped my reality for a long period of time. And like I mentioned, it took me a while to get out of it. And I want to share, what I learned, of course, hindsight being 2020, and what I've learned in, similar yet different situations in the 6 or 7 years since, when I found myself in emotional ruts, not quite to that extent, because I've been able to get out quicker. But before I do that, Micheala, I know I have been dominating this conversation. I'd always love to get your insight and hear your experiences. Anything you want to add here at this point?
No, that was good. I'm ready to hear what you've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, like I mentioned, not a psychiatrist, a psychotherapist, anything like that, but I'm really fucking good at acquiring knowledge and finding simpler ways to execute it, implement it, and do so efficiently and effectively, which is why I am so good at helping people like you who know what to do when it comes to losing weight, keeping it off, and feel your best, actually do it and really step into that identity of someone who does it. And here are a handful, I think I've got 7, maybe 8 takeaways and learning lessons I've been able to specifically glean from that particular chapter of my journey and use repeatedly during other chapters in which I found myself in a similarly emotionally charged situation. And the first thing is that pain, negative emotion, is always temporary, seasonal, if you will. There are seasons of winning. There are seasons of losing. There are seasons of pain. There are seasons of incredible growth, confidence, joy, and real strong contentment. But anything you may be going through right now, physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, mental pain, remember that it is temporary. It is not who you are. It is a chapter of your life. And if you can really lean into this mentality, which is far easier said than done, I'll be the first to tell you that, it really helps keep levels of hope and inspiration and positivity alive and at the forefront of your thinking, which we know has a positive trickle effect into your actions, your beliefs, your identity, and your reality. And the second one I can't stress enough, and I don't care how cliche it is there really is always a silver lining. Find it. Find that silver lining. And, one of the exercises and actions that we encourage, Micheala and I both do it on a daily basis on Instagram, it seems, but definitely within the community and the 5% Fundamentals program, is the action of writing down positives, non-scale victories, or gratitude every single day. I mean, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for when I wake up and before I go to bed every single day to help train my subconscious to always be scanning my environment for positives, positives, positives. And when you are in an emotional rut, it can seem like that is impossible and the last thing you want to do, but you need to do it. Find the silver lining. It is absolutely there. And specifically, for me, there were actually multiple silver linings during that powerlifting identity crisis, if you will. But one of them being it really gave me an opportunity to have more time. I wasn't spending 2.5 hours in the gym. And after I was able to pull my head up a little bit out of that tough time, I was able to use that, increased time, if you will, productively. And for those of you who are like throwback followers of myself on Instagram or at bodybuilding.com, I was able to launch the Nutrition Tactician University, which was a nutrition education based online course platform talking about, nutrition basics and whatnot. So it created this opportunity that ultimately showed me how much I loved teaching and coaching others. And well, here Micheala and I are today, so many years later, coaching and teaching others. And that really is what instilled this aha moment of how much I enjoyed giving other people aha moments. The next question is kind of a tough one. Why are you feeling this way? Be brutally honest with yourself. Why are you feeling the sadness, the bitterness, the frustration, the anger? Are you blaming someone else? Because you should be taking ownership as best you can. In some way, shape, or form, there's a layer of ownership that needs to be taken here. And if you can really peel back the layer of the onion and have some honest, objective conversation with yourself to learn why you're feeling this way, chances are you're going to quickly find more control in the situation than you once thought, which means you're going to have more control to find more positives, silver linings, and get yourself out of the situation much sooner. Another theme that now I keep in top of mind very often, I wish I had this knowledge back when I was going through that experience, is remember that life happens for you, not to you. And if you can keep that in mind, it's an excellent opportunity to reframe the current situation you are in, to really prime you to do a better job of finding those positives and silver linings. And building off of the previous prompt or reminder, I went a little out of order on my notes here of why you're feeling this way. Be honest with yourself with this second question too. How would you rather feel? Okay, you feel sad and bitter and hurt and anger or guilty right now. How do you want to feel? Do you want to feel forgiven or in a position to forgive others? Do you want to feel happy, in control, certain, inner peace and calm? it's great to know you don't want to feel how you're feeling now, but to really help you get out of that situation and make the necessary changes, you need to get really clear on how you do want to feel so that you can appropriately align your action steps to get there at an accelerated pace. And building off of that, what do those action steps look like? Like, what is one single action step? Specifically, I would encourage a self-care related action step that can bring you 1% closer to the feelings you just described of how you want to feel. And the last one I'll share is be vulnerable and confide in a supportive community. How are you feeling? Because I want you to remember this. If you are not speaking it, you are storing it. And that can get heavy as fuck really, really quickly. And if you're walking around life trying to feel better and be your best, and you're carrying this heavy emotion, this negative energy, remember, negative energy, these emotions, these vibrations in your body, if you're carrying this, it's only going to make your journey much more uphill. And suffering in silence really leads to those feelings of isolation and hopelessness, and doesn't put you in an environment to succeed. And I truly remember connecting with a few close people I had met. And I'm going to shout this guy out. He probably doesn't listen to the podcast, but Matt Palmieri was this guy I met. I was living in Idaho at the time. I flew down to, I think it was Boca Raton, Florida for this powerlifting squat workshop. And I met this dude. We were partners when we just did 1 million squats with each other. And we just stayed in touch via texting. And I was able to really confide in him how I was feeling after I was just devastated. I couldn't lift anymore. And he had the relatability of navigating injuries, training through injuries while being a competitive power lifter. And just having someone who understood where I was incredibly supportive and helpful when it came to accelerating my, emotional ascent out of that position, out of those negative emotions and that emotional rut. So confide in a community, surround yourself with like-minded people or people you trust, support, can relate to your journey. Know there's inevitable ups and downs who can quickly help you find the silver linings and pull you out of the deepest depths of darkness. Whew, I feel good about that. Micheala, anything to add?
Yeah. Well, what really stood out to me there, honestly, I mean, I love all of those, but I always tell myself now, and I think I've mentioned this before on this podcast, but it was you when I went back to one-on-one coaching with you who told me to take the emotion out of the equation. And it really helped me gain so much more awareness. It's crazy, that one statement, but I say it to myself all the time. If there are ever situations where I just don't want to do the thing that I know that I should be doing, I always try to stop in the moment and ask myself, why am I feeling this way? And just taking that single moment to figure out what it is. Am I feeling tired? Am I stressed? And I use this same kind of thing with I have this checklist in my mind that I use on days that I don't want to work out. Believe it or not, I have those days too. And when I get up and I'm not feeling like working out, I go through the checklist. How did I sleep last night? Where's my stress? Where's my recovery at? Am I sick? And depending on my answers to those questions, it's oh no, I'm not feeling it today. Okay, get your butt up and do it anyways. But then also the importance of having structure in your life, and, because structure is so important, that it can help us make the logical decision rather than just giving into our emotions in the moment.
Yeah, that was gold. I really like that. I appreciate you sharing that. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, taking the emotion out of the equation is a game changer there. And yeah, when you're clear on how you're feeling and how you want to feel, makes that process a lot easier. Well, 5% Away podcast listeners, thank you so much for listening to another episode. If you found it valuable, we would greatly appreciate you sharing it with a friend, coworker, colleague, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, whoever it may be that you feel would also find this particular episode and the show as a whole valuable. And if you have not done so already, hey, 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast would mean the world to us. We love to connect with you and love to hear what has resonated with you. If we're talking about things that aren't resonating with you, maybe obviously we're not the podcast for you, but if you have feedback, we would love to know. If you have ideas you'd love us to discuss and explore further, send either myself or Micheala a note on Instagram. You can find those links in the bio as well. And like we mentioned, if you are feeling so good about progress towards your goal, clear on where you want to go, but you just feel like what's missing is that supportive, uplifting community that is really entrenched in continuous growth, support, and unmatchable communication with one another, I encourage you to apply for the 5% community, which you can also find the link to in the show notes below. Well, thank you again for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next episode.